Coming up next. Stay tuned to learn more about the state of blockchain education at major universities all around the world. Reimagine 2020.
Hey everybody, we're back with another education segment of the Reimagine 2020 Virtual Blockchain Conference. I'm Ashlie Meredith, Head of Education at MouseBelt Blockchain Accelerator, and today I'm here with Maggie Love. She's from Web3 Cloud, and she is the founder of a newly announced education initiative called SheFi. Going to be helping women dive into the DeFi space. Really excited to have this conversation, something that I really care about. So thanks for joining us, Maggie. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. It's sunny here in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm learning while I'm sheltering in place that whenever the sun is out, I'm happier. So maybe I'm learning I'm a bit of a houseplant as well.
We all are houseplants, right? We need water and sunlight more than we pay attention to. So why don't we just dive right in? A lot of the interviews that we've been doing, we know we have a large student community watching. And it's been really interesting to ask people, you know, how did you get into blockchain, even before blockchain, your journey? For what I hear from students is that when they hear from industry people like yourself, it really makes blockchain tangible for them. So for anyone, any students who might be listening, who might be thinking about going into blockchain, I mean, especially women, right? Tell us your story.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So I started off in consulting at IBM, and then after I had kind of gotten tired of the travel and that lifestyle, I decided to move over into IBM Watson. So I was doing product strategy for IBM Watson in financial services. And at that time, I was living in Chicago, flying to New York all the time. And then I had fully transitioned to New York, and we were building out about 7 Watson and financial services products, focusing on optimizing banking and like back-end office processes with AI and a bunch of other, you know, buzzwordy tech terms, which was really a lot of fun because I got to kind of grow a business unit with my boss. So while I was doing that, I was invited to join some strategic IBM meetings about, you know, how are we really going to focus on financial services with IBM? And in one of those meetings was this man named John Wolport, who is now also at Consensus. We like to joke that he followed me there. And he kept talking about this blockchain thing. And he was so passionate about it. And I was excited. So I decided to go pick up a book at Barnes and Noble about blockchain. This was about 2016. And I just started reading about it. And I immediately had to be a part of it. So I was doing some stuff with Watson and blockchain, and I had realized through all of my research that the Ethereum space was really exciting. And, you know, if I was going to be doing blockchain in New York, it should be with Consensus. And so I left corporate America for a couple of reasons, but one of them was really to join that revolution. And everybody I talked to at Consensus had so much passion, was ready to reimagine the future, and was willing to give a chance on me. So I come from a non-technical background. Like I said, more business consulting, business strategy. I got used to working with product teams and understanding requirements and backlogs and technical aspects of building things. But I wouldn't say that I was, you know, at the time, somebody who would like design tokens or this economics or, you know, or code. So in 2017, so it's almost my 3 years, I was able to join Consensus, and I fell in love with the opportunity and the technology and everybody I met working on it. And I just became a voracious reader, everything about Ethereum, every idea coming out. I believe at the time, and this might've been 2016 too, Laura Shin had just started Unchained, and she had done one of her podcasts on like the stock exchanges or something. And I had listened to that podcast like every morning, so many days in a row, because I really wanted to understand this technology. And its power to reimagine economies, reimagine value transfer, business processes. And so I would say that really there was something inside of me from the moment I heard about it. I knew I had to kind of listen to what that was. And the more I read about it and got educated and did online research about who was doing what and where I should be, and then, through Consensus, got a lot of opportunities to work with teams on building ventures and working with enterprise clients, and especially co-founding Web3 Cloud and whatnot. I've been here since 2016, 2017, and that just, there's been so much learning and so much opportunity. So what I'm trying to say is just learn everything you can about it. It doesn't matter where you're starting today. If your first job offer isn't exactly what you think it's going to be, keep reading, keep listening to the tech, keep finding out who's doing what in this space, what excites you. Don't be afraid to reach out to people, find ways to get interviews at the companies you really want to be at, and just be open. So, I think IBM was very safe, was a very safe job, right? Big company, and Consensus was this startup out in Bushwick. And so just taking those risks and surrounding yourself by the right people. Luckily, Consensus was this amazing talent magnet for people building products, thinking about the ways we even build organizations differently. So, getting educated, surrounding yourself by the right people, taking risks. I said yes to every type of project. I never thought any project was below me or to this or to that for me. I just dug my heels in and do what I had to do. And I think, all of that really turned into being a part of this movement and getting all the opportunities and spotting them and making something out of them that I have. So it's, probably easier if you are technical, but if you're not, that doesn't mean you can't be involved. There's a lot of things that we need to do to still scale this technology and to get it into the hands of many people. And that requires a lot of talent. So don't be shying away because you might not have come out of college with the exact background. Keep finding those things. And if blockchain you're passionate about, find your way to get involved.
Thank you for that. That's awesome. You kind of naturally just, started giving advice. That probably would have been my next question. What would you tell these students? You touched on two things that I love the most about working in blockchain, one of which is the passion of the people who are involved. I talk to students all day, every day, and they're all just so excited about the potentials of this technology. It's one of those rare things that has a message behind it, right? So people can rally behind, and it's all really fun to work with people who are so passionate. And the other thing is how much opportunity there is for people who are not technical, or for anybody to get involved in this. But especially I come from humanities. So before I started the university program over at MouseBelt, I was teaching philosophy at Portland State, and I've been in the academy, teaching, tutoring for 12 plus years. But realizing that the role that I have is someone who is really well versed in universities and working with students and working with administrators and understanding all these different stakeholders, and they have different, concerns and navigating all of that for my team, who some of them, to be honest, never went to college. A lot of people in tech, you're a coding genius and you drop out of school to start your startup. So, I have that to bring to the team. So it's just exciting to see how much, we've got what you would expect, 60% data scientists, computer scientists and engineering students, but the rest of those students that are in our community, we do surveys and learn a lot about them and what's going on at their schools, is communications people, marketing people, law, even some philosophy students. So that's been really cool to see. And what I've been telling students is that because there's so much that needs to be done in the space, that you can get you can get a job in a lot of different kinds of places in the nonprofit sector because of that domain expertise. So if you are the one person who knows a lot about blockchain, all of these enterprise companies, some nonprofits, governments, they're all creating blockchain research arms, right? Or they're work groups to try to figure out if they're going to use it or not. Even if it's really in the early stage, a lot of these companies are starting to need more people who understand this technology. And you don't have to be technical to understand it to a point where you can communicate that as a consultant or whatever. A lot of these student groups have been creating consulting startups, and businesses are looking to them because they're the ones really plugged into this information. And it's just one of those things, right? Emerging technology, younger people are going to be interested in it. So with all this opportunity, we also need to make sure that that it's an opportunity for everyone, right? That those opportunities are accessible to everyone. And, you know, just the fact of the matter is that it's a tech industry, which is already male dominated. It's something that became popular among certain kinds of communities online where women may not have been welcome. And, you know, something like 2% of cryptocurrency owners are women. So you're on the front lines now. You've decided to take up this arm, and I love the name. It's so perfect, SheFi, to teach women about DeFi. So tell us about that project. How did it get started, and what's the mission?
Yeah, so how it got started is a sort of a funny story. And I think that as we're entering this new paradigm of not connecting with people as much, I hope we find a way to model that in the virtual world, because it actually, it came from a few places. So I've been in the space, I've been watching it grow. I've always been in tech and more male dominated industries. And, you know, the value is that everybody can participate in these economies, and you don't need a certain amount of wealth to, you know, either purchase an investable asset or get onboarded into a new economy. And so, you know, I saw that and I believed it, and that's what I'm here for. I just think with the state of the technology, and you know, it still needs to really grow, that like until I saw DeFi, and even though there was a lot of really interesting other projects, that was a space that I was like, yes, this can finally fulfill that mission of onboarding a lot of people into these economies in a way that, you know, we all understand. I just was really finally excited that I was watching this happen. So I had been watching it, you know, grow over the past year and whatnot, and some of the newer platforms coming out. And I was actually talking to a friend, Corbin Page. He's in the Codify team at Consensus. And he had mentioned that a group of people had gotten together for the NCAA bracket. So if you don't know how that works, everyone pays, let's say, $20 to a pool, and then a bunch of basketball games are played, and you kind of bet on who's going to win the overall game. And with that pooled money, while the games were ongoing, so while, you know, game 1, game 2, game 3, whatever, they had put that money in Compound just to see what had happened. And since they had kind of all agreed, like this was a pool of money that they were giving away to a winner anyway, it didn't, you know, matter what happened to it. And they were getting like 7% interest on the entire pool. And I was like, wow, like I knew women weren't involved, and it's not because they weren't invited. It's just like basketball tends to be a more male dominated space. So I was like, that's a cool idea. And the wheels in my head just started turning. And I was like, what could I do to recreate that, those similar sentiments, like pooling money together, that you're okay if something happens to it because it's not your own ether that you're hodling. And at the same time, how do I get something for women to rally around? So I'm not a big TV watcher myself. So The Bachelor, Bachelorette, all these kind of like other game TV shows are not global. And I wanted to make sure it was a cause that was global. And you know, not everybody watches, so it wouldn't have as much engagement. And I'm a big runner, so I was just running a lot, and that's when I do my best thinking. And I was like, oh my gosh, what if we pooled money together for a charity? And what if that money then was put in different DeFi protocols that we all learn about together, and then we can actually discuss like what is happening to the money while it's sitting in that project and whatnot. And then, you know, on another one, I had the name SheFi, and I was like, it's here, I have it. So really it came, and I think that's like, there's so much serendipity and talking to people and meeting with people, and we weren't even meeting to talk about the NCAA bracket, right? We're just friends and we are catching up. And so it's truly just like, I'm a big believer that inspiration can come from anywhere and any person and anything. So just like being on the lookout. In the back of my head, I knew I wanted to do more with DeFi myself personally. I saw it growing. I saw a lack of women on teams, a lack of women participating. And, it's not that, I don't think it's something to necessarily like be upset about. It's truly an opportunity then to say, this is all happening. We're at the beginning of these new economies. How can I get more women in? And then just that conversation really, like, it all made sense to me. It was like, how can we get women to play with this money, pool together money that they're okay playing with, and then hopefully by, doing it as a group together, and then the funds going to charity, which everyone immediately was like, I can get on board with that. They can go home and then, potentially use their own funds in a project they like, or they can, start telling other people. So that's how it came together. I was watching the ecosystem. I saw an opportunity there. I had a random conversation. I thought on it, and it sort of all came together, and started asking some people for, initial feedback. And they were like, yes, this sounds like a great idea. So, and then just doing it, this is right now, I don't want to probably have another question about this, but I just kind of like had the idea, started sharing it, kind of voiced it. And certain people I work with are like, you need to do this, you need to do this. So partially having the idea and then voicing the idea is what really makes you make the idea happen, right? So putting yourself out there in this way is somewhat newer for me in the crypto space. So just also knowing that when you have something, if you do put the passion into it, and the brain power and like the muscle, you can make it happen. So that's kind of how it came together. It was knowing the idea, having a serendipitous moment, and then actually having the confidence to bring it to life.
Absolutely. I'm a big advocate for like speaking your plans, because then you're made accountable, right? And people can't know, like, of course you don't want to be the person who's like, oh, I'm going to run a marathon, and then you never run a marathon. Those people are annoying. But like, speaking about things, your announcement, someone tagged me on Twitter and said, Ashlie, I think you'd like this. And I was like, I love this. And now we're here like interviewing. So yeah, definitely great advice for any students out there watching. First comes the idea, then just put it out there. You never know what'll happen. And I think speaking on your plans, other people can hold you accountable. You're more likely to follow through if there's expectation, right? But also just this kind of manifesting of like putting it out there in the world so that people like myself can find you, and all of that. So really love what you're doing. I really love the idea of doing it for charity. And you talked about what can make people more comfortable with playing around with money, because there's a lot of societal things that might go into like risk tolerance among women. And that's why it's so important for someone who has those societal understandings, or even just that experience of being a woman, to lead these kind of initiatives, because particular communities have like particular struggles. For example, I just did another interview with the founder of Black People in Cryptocurrency, and for some reason, the Black community was just getting an influx of multi-level marketing crypto scams. So this was like a unique thing that was happening in her community. So she founded Black People in Cryptocurrency because she knew that community and she could serve them best. So similarly with SheFi, I love that. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about barriers to entry in the space, or what you're hoping this will do, what SheFi will do for women who are new to the space.
Yes. So while I was thinking about this idea, I also did some research. There's not as much research in crypto. Actually, CoinGecko just came out with a report around it, but I wanted to see if my assumptions about women in the traditional financial space, or I should say current financial space, were actually not as confident using their money. I live in New York, so I think it's a financial hub. And whether my female friends are in finance, in tech, in business, in whatever industry they're in teaching, and we span a lot of variety of careers, and everybody wants to know, like, what can I be doing to better manage my wealth? And so that was my first inkling, that we still haven't figured out personal finance for women necessarily, and that risk tolerance. And so I always wanted to check first. So I actually did some online research, and I found a report by Allianz Financial. And in this report, it said over half of the women say they wish they were more confident in their financial decision making. And And also a quarter of the women that engaged in the study said they're in a financial profession. And that's actually down 30% from 2016. And finally, women in 2019, so this is even pre-pandemic, are saying they feel less financially secure compared to 2016. So that's definitely confirmed my assumption that we still need to do more to get women confident with engaging in finance, taking a little risk appetite in, and getting educated. So in one of my presentations, I did this Maleficent picture, and I said we don't want old fi, new fi to look like old fi, right? So like mirror, mirror on the wall, if it's just you staring back. If DeFi is just staring back and it looks like the same profile as old fi, like we haven't done enough. And also, as I was mentioning, I was just seeing that these lending projects, especially, like you don't even necessarily have to borrow from or trade or do these other more complex financial decisions, but you can like lend your crypto and get 8% or 4% or 2%. And if you go on my Chase Bank today, it's like 0.01%. So, you know, this opportunity is now. And so how can we get women started? And then since you're not, you know, betting on stocks, you know, a Tesla stock costs what? Maybe $100. I haven't looked recently, but it's expensive. Or even spending $40 on maybe a lesser stock is a big chunk of money. And with crypto, you can put $10 to $15 in. So I see this opportunity for this new financial system to kind of help with those financial risks and reservations that women have. But then, you know, we have to actually do the engagement part and the experimentation part. We can't just put out education. We actually need to get people playing with these projects. So I kind of tested that assumption, saw those numbers, and then CoinGecko of recent has just put out a report that said 89% of the users who've heard of DeFi are male and between 20 and 39. So that was right after my SheFi announcement. So people are starting to pay attention to the fact that this DeFi space isn't as diverse, and I'm not benefiting from having diverse participants in it. So, you know, one of the challenges or barriers is the fact that like this personal finance and the traditional finance, that world that we all operate in, already has women feeling less secure about the choices they're making and having less knowledge. That's kind of one barrier. And then when you want to bring them into this new financial space, because you don't need to have as much capital, you don't need accreditation, you can, you know, you need an internet connection and a phone. You don't need a bank account. You don't need KYC. Like you see all this more opening of the financial access, but then I'm reading these articles, and it's like CDP and APY, and you know, for us crypto literate people, we're like, oh yeah, collateralized debt position. But what is that even? You know, what is a stable coin? You know, what is a DAI? What is a USDC? What is a Tether? What is a GUSD? So we have our own language barriers and our own finance barriers in crypto, and it's not to anybody's fault. You know, I think the crypto space is very focused on their own audience, which is the crypto literate. And I just saw that if even someone like me who hasn't been in the space as long can immediately read an article and say, there is 5 words in here that I've never heard of, or I've never been explained to me. And it's supposed to be a 101 on that project or on that initiative, on that, you know, whether it's a stable coin or a derivative or whatever it is, like that's another problem as well. So women are already feeling less able to make traditional financial decisions. They have this, I believe we have an unprecedented opportunity to bring them into this space because, like I mentioned, no KYC, no banks, etc. But then we have a whole other new financial language barrier or technological barrier. You know, all the things that crypto bring, that's hard. So how do we actually make content accessible? How do we make these words? Many of them are actually traditional financial words. How do we break them down? How do we put, you know, the different things we're seeing in crypto, how do we put them into things that people know? Like for a stable coin, I want to have a stable currency that I can go use anywhere at the store, or, you know, when I'm purchasing this, like put them into terms that people understand. Oh, that's why I'd use a stable coin, because I want to buy my groceries or whatnot. So just, you know, really continuing to make the content accessible to not just women, but everyone who hasn't spent as much time in the financial world or the crypto world. So I think the barriers, you know, are just already the risk appetites and what some of these surveys are saying, as well as not then being able to understand all this new crypto lingo and decentralized finance. And then one last barrier is like, we actually need the money to play with these projects. So like I said, there's a lot of reservations about going into your own pockets. I've been holding ETH now for X amount of years, and you're going to tell me to convert it into a stable coin on this beta website for swapping tokens, and then put it in this other website put it in this lending protocol when their essentially cousin, a different lending protocol, had an attack. Like, my own money? Absolutely not. And so we women, and I'm not here to talk about every single barrier that women have in general when it comes to finance, but we have less money, we might have less time because we're the caretakers. There's like a lot of those things as well. So how do we actually get women funds to start playing with those projects in a low risk way so they can be the empowered, confident people, break down that barrier to use their own funds? So I think it's like general financial barriers and understanding. Then you're piling the whole crypto lingo and technology knowledge on top of that. And then you're not giving them the money to actually go and play with these projects in a low risk way, because I doubt we're many of the whales out there. So kind of those three barriers are things that I wanted to figure out a way to overcome with the SheFi initiative.
Yeah, so you touched on something that I think everyone in the crypto space should really take to heart, is that we have this problem with like not enough thought going into the UX and UI of these products. They're not easy to use, they're not easy to understand. So I would just tell everyone listening, if you're creating content for your customers, like, realize your customers aren't just the crypto literate. If someone who's been working in this space for 3+ years is reading your 101 and there's words in there that they've never heard, like, you're probably doing it wrong. So
Right.
definitely having a lot of these kinds of conversations with people that we've been interviewing for Reimagine 2020 is that, yeah, we do need to focus on education, plain English, better user interfaces and design, just to make that on-ramp shorter. So to wrap this up, maybe tell us a little bit more about how this platform's actually going to work, and where people can find you to get the latest updates of the launch.
Yeah, so SheFi, I announced it about maybe a month or so ago. And so it's still in, kind of like, in a way, testing. So what I have going on right now is a cohort of women inside of Consensus. We're going through this together. So I'm putting together the materials, I'm hosting the Zoom sessions, I'm getting their feedback on what they'd like to see next. They're opening my eyes to different risks, different fee things that we, may need to cover on a different topic. And then, we pool together funds, and we have a SheFi wallet, and then we demo. So we do a week of learning. So we learn about the project, we learn about all the terms associated with it, whether those are crypto terms or traditional financial terms, to everybody comfortable. We walk through what the steps on the platform look like. So it's very learn intensive. And then the next session we do. So we, mirror those steps that I had went through in the session, and we invite more conversation. Stop. We look at gas prices. We gripe about that. And so really right now, I'm a big fan of the crawl, walk, run. So I really, and even before SheFi was launched, I actually was running these pilots within Consensus, because I wanted to make sure before I announced this that there was a need, there was excitement, there was positive feedback. And so this really awesome group of women right now in Consensus are helping me build out what the future of this looks like by participating and by, being a part of that community. So, my philosophy is like, if we have the education plus the experimentation and the community, that is really how we scale something of meaning. And really, I want to touch on the community part, because I could just publish a bunch of content out there and I could just hope people were listening, hope people were reading. And there is a lot of content, but the benefit of community is hearing the questions and the feedback and the struggles, and having this space for women to come together and kind of laugh about our blockchain mishaps or our finance mishaps, and then helping each other, helping me answering questions. And so like this DeFi journey is something that is collective, and I think something that is empowering, and something there is sticky there to coming and seeing people a couple of times a month to learn together and to have this community. And so there's a few things going on then. So I'm running that pilot within Consensus. I've launched SheFi publicly, which has allowed me to start actually communicating. So if people go to www.shefi.org, they will be able to sign up for a newsletter, and the newsletter title is SheFi Shorts. And so in a couple weeks, we'll be sending out a survey that kind of gets the understanding of where people are today who sign up for the newsletter, because that could be different from the people who are actually in the cohort. So I'll start writing content based on that. So maybe we start with MetaMask and Argent and wallets, and before we get into stable coins, and maybe we have sections for beginners, and then say like if you're more advanced, you can go here. So really understanding like what we want to communicate by understanding who we're communicating to and where they're at. So cohort, starting this newsletter that won't bog down your inbox weekly, but will come every now and then. And also I'll be running a column in Decrypt, which is a crypto publication called What the Fi is DeFi. And so we'll be breaking down some of these topics as well. So while I'm starting to put out contents, I'll be really thinking about how do we scale community? How do we scale the educational part? How do we scale the experimentation part? And I hope to, in the later half of this year, have more information on that. And while starting to make the education accessible, thinking about the ways we actually get the community to be broadened beyond Consensus. So that is like where we're at now. And like I said, if you want to find out more, www.shefi.org, sign up for the newsletter. We'll be sharing the content that I publish in the Decrypt. So if you're reading Decrypt, you'll find it. If you're reading SheFi Shorts, you'll find it. And then, we have Twitter and a bunch of we're starting to look at other social media outlets in order to kind of start engaging a wide variety of audiences beyond crypto.
Oh yeah, crypto Twitter is huge. So wait, what's your Twitter handle?
Okay, so the Twitter handle is SHE, and then it's __FI. That is what I could grab for SheFi. There was already some SheFis out there by the time I had
two underscores, everybody.
2 underscores. So there you can find it. And that is purely just to publish DeFi content and retweet and actually share some of our experiences. Today, we were trying to do some lending via InstantApp, and the gas fee was $2.13. So kind of like if you're also just curious some of the more candid experiences the group is having, I'm also going to share that, because I think the more we share that feedback with the ecosystem and we get more people's eyes on it, the more we'll continue to improve DeFi. The more we improve DeFi, make it more accessible, and people would actually want to do a transaction because the fees aren't $2.13, we'll continue to, broaden the number of people participating.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully we can help build your community. Send everybody over to shefi.org and she2_fi on Twitter. Thanks again, Maggie, for hopping on and sharing your experiences. I'm really looking forward to what comes out of these surveys. I think that's the best way to start. That's how I started the university program. We talked to like 35 different professors and students all over the US just to see like, what do you care about, right? What do you know? And that's just the best way to start any project. Go out and find out what do you care about? What do you know? And build your program around the community that comes to you. So really looking forward to everything you're doing with SheFi. Thanks again for joining Reimagine 2020.
Thank you.
You're tuned in to Reimagine 2020. Stay tuned to learn more about the state-of-the-art in blockchain education and technological development all around the world. Reimagine 2020.